Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on the agenda is we're going to have a swearing-in ceremony for assignment to a new investigative detective. Traditionally, we've had one detective on Shelter Island, Sergeant Detective Tilburg, but everything else is changing. Our department is growing. We have 2 sergeants, and now we're going to have 2 detectives. I'm very fortunate to watch almost the entire police department from grammar school through today grow up on Shelter Island, become part of our community, a very big part of our community. I have to say, I've heard from all of us, all the town board members, all over the, all different parts of the community, what a wonderful police force we have. And anytime anybody gets called, they're just so impressed with how professional they are, how considerate they are, how compassionate they are. We're all very, very fortunate to have the people who do. A lot of that goes to the chief. Andrew? Could you repeat after me? I, Detective Graffenino,
I, Detective Graffenino,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the codes, rules, and regulations of the town of Shelter
and the
Island.
codes, rules, and regulations of the town of Shelter Island.
I will faithfully discharge the duties of detective,
I will faithfully discharge the duties of detective,
abiding by the rules, regulations, general orders of the Shelter Island Police Department.
abiding by the rules, regulations, and orders of the Shelter Island Police Department.
And I will serve and protect the people and property of Shelter Island
And I will serve and protect the people and property of Shelter Island
to the best of my
to
ability.
the best of my ability.
Thank you, sir.
Just gonna ask. So just in brief, I wanted to first congratulate Detective Graffenino. He's been serving the police department for many years now and really has done a good job. As a police agency, I want to thank all the police officers and personnel that work for our department at all levels, from our clerks to our officers to our bay constables, our animal control officer. We have a really hard-working police department, and our goal is to serve the community. And we want to serve you at all levels. We're fortunate to live in a place where we can take the extra step for people, and that is our culture, and that's what we try to do every day for our community. I want to thank the town board for supporting us. It goes a long way when you have the support of not only the community, but the town board who back us every day. And most of all, I want to thank the families that turned out today. Not only Andrew's family, but all the police families that are here today. Without the support of our families, it's really, really difficult to do the job that we do in a smaller place. So thank you all for turning out. Congratulations, Officer Graffenino, and we look for some really solid years. I appreciate it.
Thanks again.
Get you all leaving now. Did you get all that? Did you get all that?
Still gonna be crowded. Still gonna be crowded.
Okay, we'll get back to business. Amber, any correspondence?
Yes, we received letters from Daniel Hockman, Bobby DiCarlo Lane, Bennett and Reed regarding the 78 Peconic dock application, and letters from Pam Demarest, Ram Island Association, regarding the Big Ram dock application.
Thank you. Okay, now's the time if anybody wants to speak to any of the resolutions we're gonna, pass or talk about before the public hearings. There's a list published, here. So anybody want to speak to any of these resolutions? Okay, if that's the case, maybe we'll get started.
Whereas William Birch, 15 Little Ram Island Drive, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to relocate mooring designated as C2458 to a location designated as latitude 41.07797 degrees north and longitude 72.30977 degrees west. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to section 90-5 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island, the town board hereby calls for a public hearing to be held at 6:02 p.m. prevailing time on the 31st day of October 2022 in the Shelter Island Town Hall for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition. So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Be resolved that Kate Davidson is hereby appointed to serve as recreational fit aide on an as-needed call basis at a pay rate of $7.85 per hour, effective November 3rd, 2023. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas the term of Howard Johansson, co-chair of the Conservation Advisory Council, on September 2020,
Expired on.
when the term expired on September 2023. Whereas Mr. Johansson has expressed his willingness to continue to serve the town in this capacity, therefore be it resolved that Howard Johansson is hereby reappointed to serve as co-chair of the Conservation Advisory Council for a term to expire on September 20th, 2025. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Whereas Civil Service has reviewed and reclassified the account clerk position held by Shelby Mundy to senior accountant clerk, a non-competitive promotion. Now therefore be it resolved, the town board does hereby appoint Shelby Mundy to said position retroactive to September 26, 2023. So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas Civil Service has reviewed and reclassified the office assistant position held by Amanda Kachu to senior office assistant. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board does hereby appoint Amanda Kachu to said position retroactive to September 27th, 2023. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas Shelter Island 5K Fall Run, Mary Ellen Adapietro has requested permission to hold the 24th Shelter Island 5K Run Walk on Shelter Island Saturday, October 21st, 2023, at 9 a.m. with a set-up date of October 20th, 2023, from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. And whereas required fees have been submitted, and whereas said application has been referred to the Police Department and Highway Department for recommendations, and whereas the Police Department is prepared to assist with the event as they have done in the past, and whereas the Highway Department will coordinate any details with the Racing Committee, whereas pursuant to Section 33-2B, parentheses 2, the town board has determined that the proposed 5K run walk will benefit the town and no fees will be required for police and highway costs associated with the event. Therefore be it resolved that said request is hereby approved. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Whereas Gabrielle Chamberlain, 4 Margaret's Drive, has requested permission to hold a celebration at Crescent Beach on October 14th, 2023, from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. with approximately 30 attendees. And whereas the required fees have been submitted, and whereas the said application has been referred to the Police Department and Highway Department for recommendations, and whereas the Police Department has responded that there is no anticipated need for police services or any other special requirements, and whereas the Highway Department has responded that there must not be any obstruction on the road during this event and all garbage must be picked up in the area, now therefore be it resolved that said request is hereby approved. So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas Northern Spy Productions, Naomi Lindberg, 74 Elwood Road, South Salem, New York, has requested a filming permit for October 17th through October 20th, 2023 at 5 Seagate Road. And whereas the filming crew consists of 17 people, 5 crew cars, 1 pop-up truck, and 1 merchandise truck. Whereas said application has been reviewed by the Police Department and Highway Department, and whereas the Police Department has responded and there is no anticipated need for police services or any other special requirements. And whereas the Highway Department has responded that there must Must not be any obstructions on the road during this event, and all garbage must be picked up in the area. Now therefore be it resolved, the town clerk is hereby authorized and directed to issue the aforementioned filming permit upon receipt of the following fees. Minor filming application fee, $500. Daily filming fee times 4, $2,400. Cleanup deposit. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Whereas Lucy Rose Singh has applied for a rebate from the town of Shelter Island under Chapter 88 of the Shelter Island Town Code to install a low nitrogen sanitary system for a property
Abstain from this vote, so can we pass
No.
this?
Oh, right, that's right.
Yes.
No, so we can't pass any of them.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd have to put
So
them,
we're gonna go down to, petty cash.
so we'll table those the next meeting.
Yeah, they'll have to happen the next meeting.
Do we have to open them and table them? Or?
There's no opening, it's just
The
resolution.
hearings are.
Okay.
Be it resolved, the petty cash account is hereby established for code enforcement in the amount of $300. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Whereas filming permit number 81 was issued on September 19th, 2023 to 138 Productions for filming at 52 Peconic Avenue on September 21st and 22nd, 2023. And whereas a filming cleanup deposit of $1,000 was paid for said filming, now therefore be it resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to return the deposit amount of $1,000 to 138 Productions, 37 Van Dyke Street, Brooklyn, New York, 11231. So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas the Department of Public Works has received a generous donation from the Beach House LLC, Sunset Beach, in the amount of $7,000 for the servicing of the Crescent Beach bathroom for the 2023 summer season. And whereas receipt of these funds was unknown at budget time, now therefore be it resolved that the following 2023 budget revision is hereby approved. $7,000 increase to A 2705H miscellaneous donations revenue account to be funded by said donation, and $7,000 increase to A 1490.497 Parks and Recreation Beach Bathroom Maintenance Expense Account. This money was, at the beginning of the season, we had asked Sunset Beach if they would split the cost of cleaning out the bathroom at Crescent Beach, which they agreed to. Then at the end of the season, they said they'd pick it all up. They paid the whole fee for the beach this year. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Be resolved, supervisors hereby authorized and directed to expend the sum of $495 from the A3120.491 PD contracts to Motorola Solutions Incorporated for the annual software and hosting services. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Be it resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to expend the sum of $1,515 from the A8160.490 landfill hazmat training account to Miller Environmental Group for the HAZWAPER refresher training. So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Be resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to expend the sum of $2,856 from the A1330.476 tax receiver computer software account to Edmunds GovTech for the tax receiver software maintenance. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Be it resolved that the 2023 general claims numbered 1708 through 1857 in the amount of $171,482.05. 2023 highway claims numbered 168 through 188 in the amount of $15,259.43. Community Preservation Fund claim number 17 in the amount of $19,136.98 are hereby approved for payment as audited, and the supervisor and/or any town board member is hereby authorized and directed to sign the approval for payment of same. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, at this time, we're going to recess the town board meeting and open a public hearing on a proposed local law entitled, local law amending chapter 8 entitled Ethics Code. And do you want to read the, I think you just need to read the summary.
I just read the public notice.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the proposed local law entitled, a local law amending Chapter 8 entitled Ethics Code of, to broaden the scope of circumstances when private employment may conflict with official duties.
Anybody want to speak to this? We've had numerous,
Yep, we have Duff.
sure, Duff is the chairman of the Ethics Committee.
Thanks. I'm Duff Wilson, Chairman of the Ethics Board. Thanks for your support. This corrects a error that we made in the final drafting of the ethics code. The all passed so quickly, I didn't have a chance at the end of work session to point out that we had inadvertently narrowed the definition of private employment in conflicts with official duties. This goes back to what the state law requires, which isn't so narrow. It gives us some discretion. Well, what's a private job is in substantial conflict with your public job.
Good stuff.
Thank you.
Just a quick pat on the back. The ethics board actually hadn't been used for God knows how long. And since we reinstituted it and you organized it, you've had quite a few calls.
True.
Thank you.
We got a bunch of people recusing and stuff.
Yes. Okay. Any other comments on the ethics law? Okay, we're gonna close that hearing and open the hearing on the Todd Prager, 78 Peconic Avenue dock application.
On the application of Todd Prager, 78 Peconic Avenue, for permission to construct a 4-foot by 100-foot fixed dock, construct access stairway from bulkhead to dock and crossover stairs to beach to the east and west side of dock, and facing northwest, install 2 two-piled dolphins, and install 2 ladders.
And we have a bunch of correspondence on the record. Okay. WMAC?
What date was that? And voted on the October 2nd? Right. And the vote was 4-1, 4 against, or voted it down, and 1 abstention. No, 1 absence, and no member voted for it.
Okay, Mr. Bennett?
Good evening. My name is John Bennett. Bennett Reed, 212 Windmill Lane, Southampton, New York. I represent the applicants, Todd and Maggie Prager. With me this evening are Jack Costello from Costello Marine and Chuck Hamilton from A.M. Weber Associates. We did on October 6th submit, amongst other things, an environmental review report from Chuck Hamilton. Dated August 5, 2023. Gave extra copies of that. I believe that was already in the record, certainly in the record for the matter below in your advisory group. So we have that. And then in addition this evening, I have 6 copies of some additional submissions and correspondence, including some others from neighbors. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this application. I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of it. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I think are the standards. And then I'm going to ask Chuck Hamilton, who I believe knows about as much as the tidal wetlands surrounding Long Island, generally as anybody out there. And we also have, of course, Jack Costello, Costello Marine, who's probably the most honored marine contractor out here for a lot of work. So again, we want to construct a 4 by 100-foot fixed dock at 78 Peconic Avenue. This is a dock that conforms to the code in terms of length. Property owner, Mr. Prager, this is significant, has obtained approvals to construct the dock from the New York State DEC, the Army Corps of Engineers, and the Secretary of State. So the Army Corps is saying that it's the negative effect on navigation. The DEC, of course, is charged under the tidal wetlands law, protecting not only navigation issues and the uses of tidal wetlands generally, but the benthic health of the area, and they have given it an approval. And the Secretary of State approval is to make sure that it conforms with the state standards for issuance of docks. Copies of those approvals were submitted to the board. We had 4 prior meetings with the Waterways Management Committee. And interesting what happened there. We went in with a 125-foot dock as per a neighbor dock that had been approved both by that 4 or 5 lots down. It's 125 feet as opposed to the conforming 100 feet. We went in with the 125-foot dock, with that dock as the model, and the board specifically asked us to take it down to 100 feet. 125 was the preferred. It was similar to an application that had been granted about 4 or 5 lots down, but we were to be accommodative to the board. We took the matter down to 100 feet, fully conforming with the code standards. And surprisingly, even though as one of the board members said, that we did what they asked them to do, there was a 4-1 vote. But we don't think that that vote is, well, we know that the board is not, of course, you listen to it and you read it with great interest, but it's not conclusive and doesn't, of course, prevent you from doing what we think is obvious. We should be done to approve this doc. We did again submit August 5, 2023 report from Mr. Hamilton. We submitted the additional information. As Mr. Hamilton's final, just preview a little bit of it, he stated that there would be not any undue adverse impact to the tidal wetlands and the adjoining tidal wetlands in the area. The boat slip with a minimum water depth of 3.3 feet at mean low water will ensure the use of boats will not disturb any bay bottom, one of the things that you look for. The installation of the open pile dock structure will have no impact to flood and hurricane and storm control. And this is critical because all I've seen is non-expert speculation based upon what we think we can prove with expert testimony and factual testimony beyond the doubt, simply untrue. There'll be no diminishment of the water body at the adjacent public access site for swimming, kayaking, fishing, clamming by reason of the installation of this dock. I don't pretend to be an expert on this, but having practiced land use law on the east end of Long Island for 40 years, I know when there are structures in the water that because of their interference with littoral drift of sand, and Chuck will tell you this from the expert's point of view, when you have scour or you're starving a beach downward from a structure, most commonly a groin. The best example is the groins at the Shinnecock Inlet. If you look at an aerial on the east side of the groin, the beach is natural because the littoral drift of sand being from east to west captures all that sand. On the west side of the groin is this immense scour. But those are things that sit in solid barriers in the water. And if there's any scour going on here, it's not as a result of any dock, and it certainly would not be as a result of this dock, particularly in light of the fact the modifications that have been made. This dock is not going to capture any sand. It's not going to have any impact whatsoever on the beach on either side of it. Any scour, any starving of the sand in the beach there is not caused by any of the docks. It will not be exacerbated by this dock because the water flows right through it. And when the water is turbid and has particulate in it, the water flows right through it. That's where you get scour when you have an effective wall. That's not what's going to happen here. And again, Mr. Hamilton will get into, who's the true expert, we'll get into that. The town of Shelter Island, the DEC, the Army Corps, and the Department of State have made consistent decisions to issue docks in this area since 2001 for similar and larger water-dependent structures at the site. Before I bring up Chuck, again, who is just impeccable in terms of his credentials, I just want to highlight some of the things that we submitted at the package this evening. We do have a letter from Dr. Gary Scher, who's the owner of 68 Peconic Avenue, who does benefit from a permit very recently granted by the town, 125-foot dock at the end of 68 Peconic Avenue. And I think one of the things he's doing is not only supporting Mr. Prager and Mr. and Mrs. Prager's application of the dock, but he's also clearing up some of the misstatements and errors and factual misstatements that were made regarding his dock. Somebody stated that it's unusable. Dr. Scher states, nothing could be further from the truth. I've loved using the dock and believe that the L and batter boards at the end of the dock have made docking safe in low and moderate wind conditions. And he says, quite candidly, in stormy conditions, most docks on open water could be considered unsafe. So again, people don't dock when there is a storm. I don't believe my dock, he's talking about his dock at 68, this is Dr. Scher, has impacted my neighbors in a negative way. Since I've owned my home on Peconic Avenue, the beach has increased and decreased in size after winter storms, even prior to any dock being built. The wooden groin in front of my neighbor's house to the west is in poor condition with many holes and boards missing. I've offered as a good neighbor to contribute to the cost of the repair. Wayne, am I going too fast? Right. Okay. Even though the groin is not on my property. My neighbor has not taken me up on this generous offer. I've also been told that the broken groin is too high to reliably maintain the sand in front of our homes. Jack Costello from Costello Home has reviewed the beach erosion in front of my house, my neighbor's house, and in his opinion, the beach erosion has nothing to do with the dock at 68 Peconic. My dock is certainly not a threat to any of my neighbors. I would be interested to read any impartial expert report stating that my dock, or the one that's applying for here, Mr. and Mrs. Prager's dock, will be dangerous or detrimental to our neighbors on Peconic Avenue. There are docks that have recently been built, extended many even spots around Shelter Island. And town law should be applied to all homeowners in a fair and equitable fashion. Yes, says some other stuff, but I'm just choosing not to say it. It's none of it's negative to the application. It's kind of choose not to say it. We submitted in the package a map. We've submitted maps of areas of the area. In the past, you can see that there are many docks in the area, all have been improved, some of them most recently. So I'm sort of scratching my head as to why all of a sudden there's some sort of change or different. We're applying for a dock under the exact same laws. There's been no change in the law whatsoever. And we think that the failure to issue a dock in this permit would be arbitrary and capricious and contrary and hold our clients to a higher and different standard. So we submitted this showing the dock at 68, which is 125 feet, well, it's the area, the address for the dock at 68, which is 125 feet. That's what we came in with. The advisory board asked us to cut it back, and we did, trying to be accommodative, and then they voted no on the 100-foot conforming dock. We also are copies of the board's resolution and the subject dock permit issued for the construction of the 125-foot dock on Dr. Sheriff's property. And also it includes subsequent modifications issued to Dr. Scher. I would submit that this package submitted for this evening is precedent for the construction, this and the other docks in the area that have been permitted and are being in use, precedent for the area, and refusal to grant this permit would be arbitrary and capricious, holding us to a higher standard. You've allowed docks in the area, no change in the law, no change in the standards. This is essentially an identical application. And a denial would be unwarranted. Mr. Hamilton, can you share with us the benefit of your knowledge, not only of the area, but the conditions that give rise to the appropriateness of a dock in this area of tidal wetlands? What do you want? You gotta come into the podium.
Okay, great, thank you. Good evening, Supervisor. Good to see you. Good evening, council members, town attorney, and of course, stenographer. Just raise your hand if I speak too fast, because I can speak too fast. Thank you. My name is Charles T. Hamilton. Right now, I'm with A.M. Weber Associates, LLC, P.O. Box 2753, Setauket, New York, 11733. I'm a graduate of Southampton College, Marine Fishery Biology and Marine Resources, and did my graduate work at Southampton College many years ago. I was an employee of the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation for 34 years. I was the chief of the Marine Regulatory Unit. When I ended my career, I was regional supervisor of natural resources for the department here in Region 1. At one time, again, I ran the regulatory program from the Tappan Zee Bridge to New York City to Montauk to Orient, and Fisher's Island was my work zone for tidal wetlands and protection waters for in-water structures, bulkheads, anything that had to do with tidal wetlands in the shorelines of New York State. I retired in 2010. I'm working because I still like helping people. I still like walking through wetlands, and I still like doing environmental assessments. It's still kind of a fun thing to do. So I'm doing this. I normally don't do town projects. I pretty much work with state and federal permits. It's always a pleasure to be here in Shelter Island. It was a special place for me. It was one of my last work areas till I retired. I started working on Shelter Island in 1986. Did wetlands for many, many years. I was only banned for 2 years. There was a supervisor called Mal Melville, if you remember Mal. Mal from coming to Staten Island we had to call Mal before we did, but we worked so well with the town clerks, town building inspectors, town highway department. Shelter Island was always a pleasure to work. It was one of my favorite areas to work in. So it's a pleasure to be back here and to review a project here in Shelter Island and give my opinion on this project. I did how did I get to Shelter Island? Well, I took the ferry, of course. But I got here because Costello Marine, I've worked with many, many years. I respect with John Costello, and I worked with Jane and Jack for many years in my regulatory role. But they asked for some assistance. They said I had a project that looked like it was going to be controversial here in the town of Shelter Island. So could I come out and help? I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll come and do an environmental review of your project. I'm not going to tell you yes, no, or maybe, but I'm going to assess what you're going to do. Yes, no, or maybe, and I will assess, how I see the project, from a perspective, not only from, impacts on marine resources, tidal wetlands, but also the town of Shelter Island code. I was an alternate permit administrator for 29 years of my career, so I got to be able to read regulations and understand regulations, so I could read the town code and kind of understand as a permit administrator how you look for the standards for permit issuance, which of course is why we're here today, is what are the standards for permit issuance. So when I did my first assessment, what I always did, of course, it's called look at the tidal wetlands map for the area, okay? That's one of our exhibits. The reason we show you the tidal wetlands map, because that kind of gives a historic perspective. It's air photography from 1974, because then I tell us what's going on and was there in 1970 and 74. So it's going to be called Exhibit 1. In Exhibit 1, you'll see what I identified. There's 2 high-profile groins. This is a manipulated shoreline. You guys know Shell Beach, Seward Beach is because we had a lot of erosion here. We had a lot of things over the years, and the issue is we had erosion. So what do? We build bulkheads. So once you build bulkheads, that does have an impact. Once we build bulkheads, the eroding headland is what builds the beaches. So once we started building bulkheads in the Silver Beach area, we took away the reservoir of sand that would provide sand to those beaches. And that is, when you actually look at the 1974 photography, if you look closely, you can see it's fairly bulkhead at that time. There was about 3 or 4 properties not bulkheaded. But the other thing that we had in the Shell Beach area, in the Silver Beach area, was groins. And that was a classic thing we did in the 1950s and 1960s. When our beaches started eroding, we started building groins. Why? There's this thing called littoral drift. Sand from this eroding headland moves along the shoreline. So if I put a groin here, I'll kind of trap it. And so we did that in the 1950s and 1960s to start trying to control erosion, trap sand and hold sand. Groins hold sand, but they also deflect wave energies, they deflect the waves and things like that. So they can be good. The thing with groins is that you don't want them too high and you don't want them too close because they need to hold sand. The impact of a groin is about 3 times its length, depending on how much sand is moving, but it's usually, you want to have at least 3 of that. So when you start looking at this, Exhibit 1, if you look in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see a high-profile groin that's just east of number 78. And it's kind of an important point. And then when you look at the next part, page 2 of Exhibit 1, you'll see another high-profile groin. That's located in the area of 68 Peconic Avenue. And when I say high-profile, you're talking structures that are probably 5-6 feet tall. They're very tall. Sand can't get that high. Just can't get that high. So once we started putting those groins in, and then as you look, further, and we'll look at Exhibit 2, and there's this one dock that's been there many, many years. When you look at Exhibit 2 and you go from the high-profile groin, you see there's a nice sand beach. We have the big L-shaped dock, and then you'll see the groins. And what you see is on the left-hand side, you'll see there's more sand. It's called the sand fillet, and that's where it's trapping sand. So when you look at that, that tells you littoral drift is actually going from west to east in this point. On this photograph, what you'll see also is another line. That's what they call the shoals and mudflats. That's considered the shoal areas of Peconic Bay when they identified the wetland area. But as you get closer, when you go to page 2, kind of important, page 2, you'll see that shoal and mudflat is much narrower in width. What does that mean? That means the wave energies that are coming in Peconic Bay are going to have less area to start breaking, lose their energy. A wave is just energy going through the water, and when the wave's going through, it has full strength. But once it starts dragging the bottom, that's when it crashes and loses its energy, and you don't get as much erosion. So as you go to the north, up in the area of 68, there's a much narrower shoal and mudflat. So you're going to have higher wave intensity when you look at that particular tidal wetland map and true picture of what was going on in 1974. Exhibit 2. It's a photograph from near map. It's March 9, 2023. This is current conditions. And in that particular exhibit, again, I show the high profile groin at 68, the high profile groin just east of number 78. And you'll see it says, I call that the West Reach. But when you look at this area, what you can see is, see that the green water? That's mean it's all eroded away. And if you look, you'll see some white flecks there. That's the waves bouncing off the bulkhead. There's no, there's no beach there anymore. It's gone. But then when you go as you go east, you'll see more of the sand beach, and you'll see how it's starting to attract sand. So when I look at this cell, we call it a cell or a reach, is entirely devoid of sand material. And what's happening? What happened over time? Beaches go up and down, summer, winter, okay? But every time I'm getting that wave action coming here, I get the wave goes this way, goes that way, and it pulls out. I was down there today looking at the waves, and you can see that refractive wave, even on today's like 10 to 15 mile an hour, was about 6 feet off. You could actually see that little backwash come in there and then come back. So that's always, it's agitated. So when you go look at this beach here, you're gonna see cobble. You're not gonna see fine sand, it's cobble. Well, what is cobble indication? Indication of chronic wave action, a lot of wave action, but it's obviously, when I look at it, it's obviously chronic wave action. So we've lost this beach from 1974 to right now. The high profile groin at number 68, you'll see a little bit of sand left at that location there. And what happens at number 68? Number 68, when you look at it, it's got a bulkhead, it's got a staircase, and I got a groin. And this groin is like 8 foot, it's tremendous. Sand can't get by it. So what has happened over time, it's in the shadow of a southwest wind, so that sand's gonna kind of hang in this little pocket right here. But last December 22, we had this pretty tremendous southeast storm. Did more damage, I saw damage up in Great South Bay, over in Greenport, did more damage than had occurred in probably the last 15, 20 years in many of these beaches. And so when that wind came to the southeast, it hit this little pocket here and sucked that sand right out. And it also put holes in the groin that you can see. And then, so that once you have a porous groin, there's water pouring through. And the other thing about groins, they reflect all waves also. When the waves are coming here, they're going here, but they're also coming in, and they also cause scour. What I found in our career, because I used to work with a fellow, you met Larry Tuttle. Larry Tuttle was from Greenport, an engineer, and Larry was a real expert on groins, and we used to have some difference of opinions once in a while with Larry. And when we did, and I worked with Jim King over in South Hole, trustees, and we finally came to the conclusion, it's good to have groins in certain parts of it. Once you manipulate and start doing this bulkhead, we got to try to grab the beach, because if I can build a little beach here, I'll prevent that toe erosion of that bulkhead. So they're kind of important. But what we found out was, do low profile groins. Do them no more than 12, 18 inches high, so the sand can catch up and then flow over, okay? And so we started doing that in the 1990s, and we were able to start grabbing more beaches and holding beaches in the past. The sand that comes onshore or offshore in this area is about 10%, 15% onshore offshore. But what happens once you get below low water, that sand just can't get out. You have to have tremendous wave action. Scour that sand up, get it up in a water column, and then push it in. And when you have that kind of storm, like that southeast storm, it will agitate that. You'll see how cloudy it is, but to get a deposit, because just look at the wave action going this way, it's just not going to build a lot of beach. So it's that traditional, when you get letting the southwest wind will do it. But anyhow, the story I'm telling you is, we have a manipulated hardened shoreline. We have high profile groins. We have very, very tall bulkheads. They're like 10, Jack, but they're 10, 12 feet tall. They're tremendous. They protect the residents. They do a great job. In fact, you don't even see salt spray. I was up there today. I couldn't even see salt spray, which you normally see. So it's an area that's chronic. The wave action is chronic all the time. You can't hold that beach. This beach, once we started building a bulkhead, once we had those grinds there, it was inevitable. This would happen. It's going to happen. So the next thing, I think I've done my discussion as far as what's going on here. So we have this section of area, and I'll just give you this. I just did just some notes today, and this just shows. I show the littoral drift. I show where the beach is starved, and an idea of what's going on. This is just okay for you guys to look at, just to get the dynamics of the beach system there, coastal processes of what's going on. So the next thing. So we got a pretty active zone. When you look at the this body of water, we've got boat waves. We got the southwest winds, pretty much steady every day. That ocean, land breeze coming in every time. Pretty steady, but no different than what you see on Great South Bay, you see on Mauritius Bay, you see over in the Remsenburg area, you see up in West Islip, Bellport. It's the same thing, 2 to 5 mile fetch. And we've had many docks in those areas. And in my career, many docks came in, people use them. What happens over time, a lot of them, they might put boat lifts, but a lot of them, people just use them for, landing places. And what's changed in my career, people used to want to always dock their boat at their home. Now they're perfectly okay to leave them at a marina and just come and periodically have their visitors and guests come to their home and just use them as that. And the other thing that we found out that changed, people use their docks, they use their property more outside, more often. So people will fish off their dock, they'll crab off their dock, they'll actually observe the wildlife, the shorebirds and the ospreys and stuff like that in a waterfowl. And we see more and more of the people when I talk to some of my clients, what do you want a dock for? And that's what, I kind of like the wildlife, I like this. So it's kind of a sitting area. So docks have changed from just being, for nautical use, now a multi-use. And that's kind of a new change, I think, in the last 10 to 15 years from the applicant perspective. So this particular dock, I looked at it, I said, I got a Star Beach, and I started looking at other docks. And the other docks in the area, and this is just another one, current conditions, again, just for you guys, it just highlight in a little different fashion what's going on with it. So when you look at the docks in the area, there's at least 5 docks in the area. There's some docks to the west of the proposed applicant's property at 78 Peconic Way Avenue. And one is a large one, it's a T with wave curtains on the offshore end. And I'm coming in perpendicular to the shore. There's also a wave curtain. It's about 80 feet offshore, fairly deep water. The wave curtain is about 2-3 feet below the surface when I was out there at low tide. It's 3 to 4 feet above the bottom. So what does that mean? The water's really going to flow. And that's kind of what all the regulatory agencies, we all do that. We don't want groins to go all the way down to the bottom. We want that water to flow. They have large gaps. So it does it. So I kind of watched it today. I watched the wave action. The waves were about 12 inches to 8 inches. And you can see a calming in the area of that T where the wave curtains were. And that's what it is. So, but when you look at the water, though, it's very clear. No turbidity. Water, to have sand, we got to have turbidity. That's when it's cloudy. There's no real turbidity because the water offshore is so deep. There's no sand coming from, the South Shore that you get up here. So it's kind of one of the reasons. So I kind of looked at docks. The wave curtains were working. It's, calming the waters there. But again, I said, okay, so we're going to build a dock here. Those docks, again, the pilings are 10 to 12 inch pilings. They're 10 foot on center. They're about as porous as we get. It's called an open pile dock system. Water flows right through, flows right back. There's no refractive action like the bulkhead. Like that bulkhead, it's just constant. Every wave, I think those waves, they're on cycles of about 2-3 seconds. They're coming and just pounding and pounding, even on a calm day. So if anything's damaged the beach, it's our bulkheads, but our bulkheads protect our properties, and that's okay. But so my assessment then was to kind of look at what do we have out here. This dock is going to be what we call the intertidal zone is going to be built in. It's going to be built in the shoals. And the offshore end, once you get below water, we call that littoral zone, the underwater land, where you might see eelgrass, you'll see maybe the Sputnik grass, the codium, the grasses and things like that. But when you look at the inshore end, it's large cobble, very large cobble. Again, more reflective of that wave action that doesn't allow fine sands to stay in there. So it's kind of a rocky intertidal zone, and as you cobble, and then as you got farther offshore, you got more sand, which makes sense. I didn't see any, this time of year is a bad time of year to be looking for eelgrass because it comes off the roots. But I did check some submerged aquatic vegetation maps that Department of State has, and they do not have this area designated as a submerged aquatic vegetation area. It is, and it's deep. It's deep. Remember eelgrass kind of likes not to be below 6 foot, so that's kind of hard because it's too deep out there. So just not a good location for eelgrass beds. So then when I look at a dock, the first thing is, and again, my report kind of goes through, I talk about the 5 permanent docks, the boat lift that's out there. I talk about what I just talked about, the shoals and mudflats, the littoral zone. There must be a continuous supply of sand. There's just not enough sand in the offshore reservoirs to build this beach. And with an open pile structure, it's not going to impact that beach. It's just not going to happen. This particular dock, the applicant and Jack told me that they modified the project. They had first applied for something beyond code. I said, why did you do that? You got to stay within code. That's always how we do things. That's how I kind of tried to run the show for a few years. And because if you can't, why not? So, but they had some reasoning. But then they were recommended by the advisory committee, hey, go meet code, do the right things, meet code. So they did. They modified the product, and that's what I did my review on the 100-foot, 4-foot wide. It's good. It's an open pile structure. There's no, you have to work, shading is usually an issue sometimes, but we don't have that stuff growing beneath it. The shellfish and the other animals who live in the bottom or the benthic community will be fine. The fish will swim through, they'll be okay. The waterfowl can go in the area, they'll be fine. The shorebirds will be there. This particular area has been designated primary use is for shellfish production, and we know this part of Peconic Bay, would you see more aquaculture and things like that? This dock is not going to impact the aquaculture use in the offshore areas. The map that I looked at says from the bulkhead offshore is owned by New York State Department of Office of General Services. And then when you got a little bit farther offshore, the state is actually giving that land to Suffolk County for agricultural purposes. So the key thing we'd want to look at that is say, is this thing going to cause any kind of pollution that might impact that agricultural use? Since this is just a docking area, a landing place, it's not going to have an impact. If someone's going to live on board or something like that, we might have some concern. But for the dock itself and the materials are going to be used, the AECQ, they're bound up in the materials, it's not going to be a pollutant to and not have an impact on those shellfish area, potential shellfish areas that are offshore. Again, so we meet the 100-foot length. They came in for the 4-foot width. The key thing, and it's always been great about the East End town, so different than anywhere else. We always make sure we maintain that foreshore. And that's what this applicant has done. He has staircases on both sides, so anybody walking along the beach, when they come off the town landing, which is just west of this parcel, when they come on the town landing, they can walk in the water. I mean, they're going to have to walk in the water because most of the time there's water at that site. Unless you got extreme moon tide or west wind, you can always have water there. But when the neighbors or the community goes down and does that, they can walk over and still progress down foreshore, whether they want to be fishing, crabbing, swimming, or whatever it may be. It still will be done. So that was good to see that that was part of the design. The vessel area is always a key thing you want to do assessments on. The vessel is proposed to be docked on the east side of the dock. It's going to be in 3.3 to 3.9. Pretty good water depth. That's at mean low water. We have a tidal range of, I think, about 2.5 feet and 2.5, 3 feet. So that means we'll have more than enough water at high tide. And at low tide, you'll have adequate water. The way the slip is set up, it looks like it's about a 25 to 30-foot boat, which in the new boats now have no more inboards, they're all outboards. So we can pretty much get, it's a very safe depth. Outboard takes it in 24 inches for that size vessel. So we'll be okay at that point. The other thing about this design was there's a side yard setbacks had to be a minimum of 25 feet. We're at 47 and 33 feet. So we're pretty much in the center of the property away from the riparian rights. You know, we always don't want to bump, bounce and have our dock be in front of it or have our boat, you know, be in front of somebody else's. And that's been a classic thing for the last 40 years. Riparian law has been a big thing on not putting docks in front of people because we did a few mistakes like that. And we visited quite a few courts and those kind of things over the years, but we don't do that anymore. So well inside the property lines. The way the vessels looks like it's going to be pulled in. It's, you know, a classic thing. The vessel's going to be coming from offshore. They're going to take that vessel. They're going to back that vessel right into that dolphin area. There's a ladder, and they'll be able to get off on a ladder to that. You know, and obviously, you know, in wave conditions that are pretty extreme, you're not going to use it. This is a pleasure. This is a good thing to have on your property when things are nice. Today's winds were 10 to 15 southwest. The wave action was about 8 inches to about 12 inches. You know, on a vessel of that size, you know, you're going to have probably 9-10 foot beam. That boat's not going to rock. When you look at the difference in the waves, they're about 6 foot on center. A boat of that size is not going to be bouncing up and down, okay? If you had a smaller boat, like a 13-foot whaler, it'll be rocking, okay? But a larger vessel is much more stable. So in today's wind, it's not a big issue. You come up, you tie up to the dolphins, you tie up to the dock, and then you go off on the ladder. There is also a ladder on the west side, and it could be for safety. I mean, if I saw anything unsafe today, the most unsafe thing I saw today was the height of those bulkheads. The lack of fencing on those bulkheads on those properties. I mean, it's just crazy to me to have a 12-foot high structure that someone could, in the middle of the night or something like that, could go right off and you never know. So it's real important that we at least have some docks out there if someone needs to get back on. But those those bulkheads are pretty extreme there. I mean, it's about as dangerous as it gets when you start looking at the height of those bulkheads. The docks all had access, the other docks that I looked in the area do have the foreshore staircases, which is good, because anyone did come in the water, you can get on that foreshore walkway. You could then walk out to, on the upland to whatever property you wanted to, if you were hurt or something like that. So the wildlife use is good. It's a multi-use, multi-seasonal type of structure. You know, it's a type 2, it's a type 2 under State Environmental Quality Review Act, it's type 2, which means like putting a light bulb in. They don't think it's going to have an impact, but we made that assessment. On the DEC, again, it can be used for recreational fishing. They can do some crabbing. I don't see any impact into the shoals and whatnot, these unvegetated things. I definitely don't see any impact to the sand beach, which is, you know, because there's no sand beach, it's gone. It's gone.
Chuck, in regards to that, we had heard from one of the neighbors that, in fact, they did have shoaling from an adjacent dock that was recently put in that they lost.
Yes, and that's the number 68, Pequannock, and I've seen the photographs. On the photographs at 68, and I walked down to 68 today. I was given permission. One of the landowners gave me permission. What's that? Dr. Scher gave me permission, and I walked down the beach. It's cobble like this, and I walked up to that groin. It's about this tall. It's got the bulkhead like right here, and it's all cobble. And her staircase is probably 18 inches, 2 foot above, but it's reflective of the long-term chronic beach erosion that has occurred because of the wave action, the big high-profile groin not allowing sand to get into there. And again, the only reason that little area, because here's the groin, and this is like that. So when you have the southwest wind, it was like a little pocket where that staircase is. And we had that southeast wind come in last December. It was direct hit on it. And when that wave came in, it hit the bulkhead, it hit the groin, and scoured it right out. So what she observed definitely happened. It's very, very thin, but there's no fine sand there. And I think the homeowner also said that her beaches always come up and down. Well, I looked at it, I looked at a photograph in March, and I looked at one in September. Her beach got a little bit wider with that, a little bit wider, but it's not lasting. It's just cobble. It's not a, this kind of long-term chronic impact because of the hardening of the shoreline and the bulk and the jetties. It's all going to go. And obviously in that one photograph I showed you. The other thing, when you look at the photograph, you'll see a white line or a yellow line on your photograph. That's the tie line. That's where the shoreline was when they did that subdivision.
Wow.
This is from Suffolk County GIS. So when you actually look at it and you look at that western cell, you can see the massive erosion that has occurred in that particular unit. But when you look at the eastern one, it's a little bit less. But that's how much that shoreline's come back. This is a great asset that, Suffolk County GIS puts down for us. And it really, when you start looking at this, and you know why we have to put, hardened structures and, there's a consummate loss, unfortunately, to the beach environment, and it's not going to be an open pile structure.
Mr. Hamilton?
Yes.
John Needham, ring a bell?
No, John, sure, many years, yeah.
Just retired, from WMAC. But he brought up that this dock would never have been approved by you when you were with the DEC.
Okay.
So what's changed for you?
I'll tell you, in the 1970s, the 1980s, the 1990s, we denied docks on the open water.
Any open?
On Peconic Bay, pretty much an open water in Peconic Bay. And why was that? Because we knew that if you built those docks, they'd be ripped out every winter. There'd be debris and storm debris and stuff all over the place, and you're always going to be redoing.
Because it iced up?
Iced up, all the icing we had. And that was our major reason. Jim King and I from Southhold trustees, we had the same agreement. We did it for many, many years. It wasn't because an impact on the resource. It was more of a public safety hazard. And we look at standards for permit issuance, we all have that thing. We have to take into consideration what's the potential impact to the public. And we used that, and we were very effective and able to stop docks during that time frame. Unfortunately, in our lifetime, we've lost the ice in the bay. We've lost that, and that's unfortunate that we've done that, because that was a pretty controlling factor. I mean, down in Bellport Bay, that used to freeze up every year, and they get about every 5-6 years. Not in Peconic Bay, you guys can tell me the last time it really froze up. I mean, it used to freeze up and take out bulkheads, and the same thing in Great South Bay, and take out bulkheads, big pilings and dolphins, and those days are gone, you know, so that concern we had, I don't have anymore, and I, you know, so I've changed my opinion.
Okay.
I haven't changed my vote, though, no. Sorry.
Can you just, if I may, so
Yeah.
so this dock is not gonna have any impact on any erosion, then, is your?
That is definitely my opinion. Yes, that's my opinion. Yes, absolutely. Do you want me to tell you? I'll talk, yeah, enough, yeah, okay. Enough. I thought you talked too much.
Chuck, thanks very much.
Thanks so much. Good to see you again. Okay. Thanks so much. Okay, appreciate it.
Anybody else want to speak? Dan?
I was practicing my speed reading, thinking I had 3 minutes, and I chopped this down. I didn't realize that I could just go on. My name's Hochman, Hochman. Thank you. Daniel. Hello, Shelter Island Town Board. My name is Daniel Hochman. I've been a resident of 80 Peconic Avenue for 32 years. I'm here to give you the reasons why this application should be rejected. First and foremost, the Shelter Island Waterways Committee unanimously voted against the Prager dock application during 2 separate hearings. Both the first dock application as well as the second application were deemed dangerous and unusable for their intended purposes. The Waterway Committee cited that 78 Peconic is an unsuitable location for a dock, as there are severe waves and cross currents, as just explained. The conditions make the dock not only dangerous for those using the dock, but dangerous to those swimming in the neighboring town landing. Section 53-15 clearly states that the town board may reject the dock application if not in the interest of public health, safety, and general welfare. The current proposal for dock and use of a boat is a threat to the environment. In the original dock application, Costello cites that a boat on this 100-foot dock can destroy the benthic zone. During a July 10th hearing, the Waterways Committee stated that the proposed dock degrades the environment. Karen Lissiker, a 40-year resident of 66 Peconic, described her experience in a letter to the town board. Karen explained that the dock of 68 Peconic has caused the acceleration of beach erosion, preventing her from using her beach. Karen submitted pictures of the beach before and after the dock was built over a 2-year span. Most importantly, I would like to address the issue of our community safety. As you all know, there is a town landing situated directly next to where this proposed dock will sit. 17 households within the immediate area of 78 Peconic have either written letters or signed a petition against this dock. Virtually the entire surrounding community has called this dock a danger and a threat to the enjoyment of public use. The application states that the intended boat will have a bow facing out and that the boat does not pose a safety risk due to the location of the dock. This is making 3 big assumptions. The first is that the applicant will back into a spot versus swinging around these dolphins 25 feet away, and they'll have 15 feet for his 30-foot boat to make the swing. First is that the applicant will back into the spot versus swinging around the dolphins, putting my family at risk. The second is that docking in open water can be done without risk of grounding the boat or harming swimmers. The third is that the dock will only be used for a single boat. Any additional boats trying to dock will be forced on the side of the town lawn landing and cause a threat. There could be a boat year-round. Once this is built, that doesn't, prevent him, families coming and several, a 50-foot boat coming and parking with a 20-foot beam coming right next to that town landing. Even Costello Marine has stated in the dock's original application dated May 24th, 2023, a dock length of 100 feet would put the boat's turning radius zone in waters less than 2.5 feet, which would destroy the benthic zone, destroy living organisms, and risk damage to the boat each time the boat navigates to and from the dock. Okay, so we're gonna have boat paint and bits of scrap coming up. By the way, the applicant placed markers to mark out his dock. They lasted 2 days. The waves came, took them out, they ended up on my property and 2 doors down. I'm almost done. The applicant states that the proposed dock will not add any significant obstructive views to the waterfront area. This is also a privileged assumption. While the applicant may not have obstructive views from their proposed 9-foot bench on their dock, every surrounding neighbor, including many onlookers who come to view the Peconic Sound vista, will be beholden to a man-made structure plus any added vessels. The final point I would like to acknowledge is that the dock at 68 Peconic should not set a precedent for this new application. At the time this dock was granted, there was a beach to absorb the wave impact. Now, with an exposed bulkhead, waves cause an increased risk. Waves hit, they come back, smash into the waves coming on, and create like a meringue pie. It just spikes up. 68 Peconic has 150 feet of frontage, while 78 Peconic has 103. There's maybe a dozen properties with half acre or less. Some are by North Ferry. This stretch has the smallest, there's 4 or 5 properties that are substandard in size. The other docks that are mentioned here have 200-300 feet of frontage. This is a small 0.38 acre lot. The Waterways Committee and town board members have cited that 68 Peconic Dock was a mistake. And most importantly, 68 Peconic was not next to a public landing. As I speak on behalf of myself and my neighbors, we ask that you respect the hard work and vast expertise of the Waterways Committee. We are one community and should support the Shelter Island experts who have numerous years of firsthand experience with the Shelter Island shoreline. And it's a pity that some of the Waterways committees feel like they have no voice and that their voice is just worthless because of the threat of a lawsuit. And the threat, just the disrespect they get, for their opinion is basically, I don't know how many times I went to 3 meetings, each individual gave a 5-minute speech why this doesn't work. Try a mooring, try a this, do something else. It's not gonna work, it's dangerous, for hours. And this is what we get. No, it's perfectly safe, that's great, let's bring it on. Okay, we also ask that you listen to our larger community's opinion versus that of a single household. The applicant is asking the town to ignore what makes sense now. We should not allow a prior mistake to pave the way for future docks and an already diminished shoreline. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi guys, Jack Costello on behalf of the applicant. Just want to answer a couple of those questions. We changed the design of the dock so the boat would no longer have to go around an L and get into the berthing spot. We had to come up with a straight open pile pier dock. That way we don't have to go around the L. I brought Chuck Hamilton in to show that there's no vegetation and things that could be disturbed. That's why we brought a professional conservation gentleman in here. And like I said, the dock got redesigned so we don't have to go in so far. We took the L off so we could enter from the outside. That's why that was done. And you guys have all been on Shelter Island long enough to know that place has been eroded for years, and that's nothing to do with the docks. I'm sure when you guys are younger, you could jump right over the bulkheads. When I did some of those bulkheads, 30 years ago, they were 4 feet tall, and now they're dangerously, precariously high. So what happens is the backlash effect drags the sand away from the bulkheads, and nobody maintained their jetties, because there were also jetties almost on every single property. They either disappeared or just weren't maintained. And that's what's going on down there, because there's not many jetties. If you go down to the far east end, you'll notice that the beach is much more sustained because the people have, for some reason, maintained their jetties. We're down towards the west end, they haven't. They've become deteriorated, fallen apart, and disappeared. Like I said, when I went to WMEC, they said, please bring in a conforming application. Mr. Prager was very gracious with the way he acted about that. He quickly retracted his non-conforming dock and switched to his open pile pier dock. So, like I said, we changed a lot of things. There's some things I had to investigate using a professional as far as the submerged aquatic vegetation. Mr. Hamilton came and did that. So, we did everything we possibly could to make this usable, including putting in a length restriction on the boat that would be going to the dock at 30 feet. And, we're willing to put that into the minutes of this meeting, that we would have a maximum length of 30 feet on the boat. So, I think that should answer the questions of disturbance of the ground and how the boat, will get in there. And just the history. It's eroding, and it's not because of the docks. So, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
And just for the public's edification, the applicant usually has no time limit. It has to be reasonable. But members of the public are limited to 3 minutes. However, if you want to speak again, you can speak again. All right?
I'm gonna keep mine short. I
Okay.
promise. Hi, I'm Bobby Lane, 84 Peconic. And thank you. And thank you to the 13 neighbors that showed up here in the middle of the week because they feel strongly about it. And thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the 30-plus residents I've spoken to. And also thank you to the town board members who attended the Waterways Committee meetings. The key points why this was denied by the Waterways Committee was that, and I want to correct a couple of things, or at least what we all heard. The original 125-foot application was denied because it was non-conforming. And prior to that, it was determined there was going to be originally a moratorium on all docks. That's what they wanted until a study was done by the Waterways Committee. But Town Board Member BJ mentioned that maybe we should just say if it doesn't follow code. But the Waterways Committee at that night wanted to do a complete moratorium because they felt that different areas of Shelter Island, some could support a dock of 125 feet, some should not have docks at all. And I guess, I was one of those people, Chuck, when you were in your position, I couldn't even get bulkheading. And my bulkheading, so that we can all know, and I'm, 2 doors from the proposed dock, on the third and the fourth, I can look over my bulkheading and I'm 5 foot tall. So, it's all different and it's how you look at things. The specific location when it was denied the 125-foot application was due to violent sea conditions resulting in dangerous situations not resolved by the variances that were granted at that 68-foot dock that they're trying to cite as precedents. It didn't, even with that dock at 125 feet, it was still an unusable dock. The person that wrote the letter is not our neighbor. He is an investor. And that's what he did. He put a dock in and no one uses the dock. The poor guy, we observed, was actually trying to use his lifts and couldn't get anywhere near it. And he finally got it up after 30 minutes with help. The other thing is, certain days and most days, I live here full time. The wind is so strong, I can't even leave my sliders open without things blowing off my table. So even for an experienced boater, they can't keep boats here. I would love to have a dock. I have tons of boats. However, it's not appropriate for this area because the water is choppy. So 68 was deemed basically unusable and a mistake by the Waterways and the town board members present at those meetings. In the 2 years since 68 Peconic's dock existed, the neighboring property, through photographs, had significant beach erosion to the point that, and I wish Karen was here to talk to you about this because it's pretty disturbing. I have not lost any of my beach. I am not near anyone's, docks or anything like that. And also my vista is pretty good, but I can actually see 68s from my house with their lifts that they don't even use, destroying a vista and, for other people, not just me. And people do stand and use to get the vista at night to see the sunsets. But I did send an email notifying the town on September 13th, and I cited Code 5313, Responsibilities, Section C, and asked that action be taken under that code to redress the dock at 68 Peconic, as there's been damage to neighboring properties. And this is in the code, and it's something that the town could look into. We've asked about that, so that would be appreciated. The second application came in at 100 feet without the L because it would all have been non-conforming. They had to come back with the moratorium. That's the reason why. And that denial was based on the same reasoning as the first proposal. However, this design is even less capable of dealing with this open water adverse environment based on the applicant's stated need for the prior design. So suddenly now at 100 feet, it's great because I want to go crabbing and fishing. And let me tell you, I've been there 30-something years, no crabs, no fish, and you can't even get clams there if you know Peconic Avenue. And I have a beach. Also, this location differs from the others and from 68 as it is adjacent to a highly used town landing and public swimming area. Our neighbor, DeReardon, right on the other side of the town landing, they always go out swimming. She got caught up in 68's dock, and she was so upset and doesn't swim anymore. Now we're gonna have this on the other side. It is not safe for, I have waterfront, I can jump off and get in the water. Other people in the neighborhood cannot.
Ma'am, you've exceeded your 3 minutes
Okay,
by
I'll
9
wrap
minutes.
up.
But you could also, at the end, if you want to speak again, you can.
Okay, I
Everybody else has
appreciate
an
it.
opportunity.
I'll give, if
No, you
anyone
can wrap
else has. Oh, okay, I'll wrap up. Code 5319 gives the town board the right to impose restrictions to prevent obstruction or interference with the use of town waters and lands. And I would hope that the town would do this. And the claim of riparian rights to a dock is not absolute. It could be satisfied with a mooring, which was suggested. And if you're only using it for a couple of hours, stick a mooring there and use it. The applicant puts the rights of the community against the privilege of an individual to one form of access to the navigable waters. The form chosen has proven to be unusable and will not meet their stated needs while depriving of and endangering neighbors. And 5315 states that the town board can modify whatever they need to. So in short, the community strongly urges the town board to deny the application based on the authority it has granted under the town code. There is no precedence here because we know 68 is a problem. And because we know it's a problem, why keep making the same mistake? And that's also what Jim Colligan said at the meeting. So I realize it's disappointing. It is not personal. Because if we could have a dock there, I'd have one. So thank you very much, and just a thank you. And thank you to the Waterways Committee for your service, and a special shout out to John Needham, who served on the committee for 26 years, who'll be greatly missed for his leadership, waterfront knowledge, and historical perspective. And quite honestly, this is the kind of case that makes people not want to volunteer. So I respect what you do very much, and I'm sorry that we lost someone of that caliber. It's so upsetting to me. Thank you very much.
Anybody else?
Hello. I'm Maya Ayera. I live at 12 North Silver Beach Road. Though I'm not waterfront, I can see I come out of my property and the public access is right there. We moved 2003, would have found any other place on the island, but when we got to Silver Beach, we saw that because we had water access with free open space, we decided that's where we would plant our home and our family, and we've been there ever since. And because we are not waterfront. You'll see my husband every time he's here, he'll be the first person walking with his flip-flops, half naked, going down the steps, and just, you know, just even till November, just swimming. And so, I mean, everyone has the right, you know, they have the right to build what they need to build as long as it doesn't affect the neighborhood. And I'm just here to just say that, you know, as neighbors, we are using it. A few of us do come out there at sunsets, one of the best sunsets in the area. We bring our wine, we look out, and it's just so beautiful. I mean, this is why we moved to Shelter Island from the city. This is why this is peaceful. It's the same situation I feel like when we built our home and people said, you know what, you need to do dark sky policy. You know, we're here, we're at peace. People don't want to see the strong lights. And that's the whole same thing. I mean, so we acquiesce, we do it for our neighbors. We lower our lights, we change things within our household. And this is what I'd like you to, I'd like to share, that we do want that, we want that neighborly support, neighborly camaraderie, that landing, though it's very difficult, by the way, to go down the steps, the stairs are half broken. And if that's not being addressed and this dock happens, no one's gonna be able to go down and even have that swim, let alone go around 100 feet dock to just go around and be safe. So we hope to hear that and continue to let us enjoy that side of the island. Thank you. AIA, IETTA.
Anybody else? Anybody on Zoom? Okay, we're gonna close it. John?
Just 1 minute, and I'll be very quick. I'll get the copy of the case from the board. I didn't think that I would have to use it tonight because it's so obvious to me in terms of. But in any event, there is a Supreme Court Suffolk County case. Justice Santorelli was the author of it. It was affirmed by the appellate division. This talk about vistas and view sheds. It's very clear, absent any established view shed protection, specific view shed protection or view protection in the local zoning code or local laws, effect on anybody's view shed is not an allowable reason to deny any sort of permit. Don't buy your property and then get a number of rights to have an open view shed. If that's what you want, you buy a property that has, by its nature, no possible view shed diminution by reason of permitted and allowed construction. We also submitted pictures of 5 other town landings. This swimming issue is just an absolute red herring. We submitted pictures of 5 other town landings on Silver Beach Peninsula, 6 in total. 4 of the 6 town landings have docks on the immediate adjacent properties. 2 of these town landings have docks within about 10 or 15 feet. So it doesn't seem to have been a problem for any of the other landings. That's it. Thank you.
I can say something about that. I wasn't even gonna bring up the Vista thing, but it was brought up in the application by the consultant here, the environmental engineer, okay? I thought, they're the ones who brought up, and they stated in their application that it won't obstruct the view, okay? So I'm contradicting that and saying, I think you made a misstatement, it's an opinion, and it does obstruct the view. And it is a very important asset to the community. Okay? And there are scientific studies by NOAA that say docks and pilings do create scour, and I cut it out to be short, that do create scour and create beach erosion. Okay, there's a National Oceanic something or other committee. And so it's a matter of opinion. I mean, half the world thinks there's no such thing as climate warming. There's no impact from those splashboards. I've been there for 32 years. I've watched every grain of sand on that beach for 32 years. I have a little experience. In the winter, the wind pushes the other way. I get a lot of sand into my groin. In the summer and spring, it goes the other way, okay? And as far as, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'll just say that this.
You have to come up.
Steve Austin, AUS Champion. I just want to say that I use this swimming area all the time, and having a dock right there is definitely going to impact my enjoyment. And, you know, the property on the other side is also for sale, and, you know, the same thing could come up for that. I mean, we'd be squeezed into a tiny little area. That's basically it.
Okay, so no other comments, we're gonna close the hearing. We will discuss it at, not Tuesday's work session, because Tuesday's work session is gonna be all budget, it'll be the following Tuesday.
Jerry, with a week for written comment, I think.
But yeah, we'll written comments
Yeah.
through,
Closed subject to a week.
yeah.
Written comment, yeah.
So we'll discuss it on the 24th.
Discuss on the 24th and accept comments, written comments
Until.
For a week.
1 week.
A week today.
today,
So the 18th.
to the 18th, but to the 18th. 24th is we'll discuss it at the work session, 18th for written comments. Okay. Okay. Next on the agenda is public hearing on 58 Tut Hill Drive LLC dock application. Let the room clear out, then we'll.
There's no forum now.
Good night, thank you. Is it cold in here?
No.
No?
It is
A little.
not, stop.
How does everybody feel out here?
Comfortable, very comfortable.
Comfortable,
Everyone's very
alright.
comfortable.
All right. I'm thinking we can hang meat in here.
Bodies left. Everyone left.
Yeah, right. They took their germs with them.
Steve, are they gonna vote on any of the applications tonight?
Yeah.
Not this one.
Obviously. Accepting red sign, discussing the work session.
Borough Hall.
Borough Hall.
Do you have Borough Hall?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a trifecta. Probably Borough Hall.
Thank you, guys.
Okay,
All right.
this is the public hearing for 58 Tut Hill Drive. Amber?
On the application of 58 Tuttle Drive LLC, 58 Tuttle Drive, for permission to remove existing offshore platform, construct a new 4-foot by 70-foot catwalk leading to a 3-foot by 12-foot aluminum ramp onto an 8-foot by 24-foot float secured with 2 anchor pilings, install a new 2-piled 10-inch mooring dolphins, construct 3-foot wide access stairs at landward end at beach.
The should I?
Yes, please. Yeah.
The WMAC met about this in September and objected to that the proposed dock encroaches into the setback by a vote of 2 for, 3 against the application. However, later, upon reflection, Chairman Needham changed his vote to deny because he believed that the dock could be built, constructed in such a way that no variance, no encroachment was necessary, and it would not affect the use and enjoyment of it. So that's just a summary of
So
how,
it's 4, no, 1, yes?
yeah. And 1 member absent.
Yes, sir.
Hi, good evening. I'm Brian Carroll. Our family is the owner of 58 Digital Drive, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. I haven't hired lawyers, I haven't hired consultants, I don't have the technical background in last team The background I have is, we've been homeowners for 19 and a half years on Cockles Harbor on Shanty Bay. My wife, my 4 children and I have really enjoyed being there, and hopefully we'll be there for another 19 or 20 or 50 years. As background on the dock here, we purchased the 58 title property several years ago from the estate of Will Ivers. Mr. Ivers' family was the original owners of the property. We were neighbors with Will for 13 years before he passed away. We also owned the next door property. And Will told me his father built the property in, I think, early 1930s, actually. And at some point, his father decided to put a platform out into the water. And his father had a platform built that was 20 feet by 6 feet, which is about 110 feet out from the bulkhead, extending out to about 130 feet out from the bulkhead. And that platform is in line with the historical steps along the waterfront, basically. And they, I assume, put it there because it was straight down the steps from the waterfront. That's where they placed this. So I assume those steps are historical as far as we know, back to the origin of the house sometime in the 1930s. At the time, there probably were no limitations or regulations, is my guess, when they built this, when they built their house, when they built this platform. Today, that existing platform is, I guess, within the current setbacks. So from our standpoint, we'd like to have a dock on the property. We initially filed to what we thought was the simplest thing, to connect that existing platform that was already out in the water with a 110-foot long by 5-foot wide dock to connect from the steps to the platform. Thought it'd be the easiest path, so we filed that. We were turned down by the Waterways Committee. So, we kind of got back together with Costello and said, look, what do we think is the most reasonable thing to try to get a dock in there? And to be cognizant of the issues, around the waterways, around our neighbors, around the historical waterfront there on Cockles Harbor. So we resubmitted an application with significant concessions. Number one, we agreed to demolish the existing platform that's there, which they deemed was, is now non-conforming, but when it was put in was conforming, I guess. We agreed to construct a new dock, which is only 70 feet long, with the catwalk. It's only 4 feet wide, so we reduced it from the initial, from 5 feet to 4 feet. We reduced the length significantly. Is the catwalk out to a new float. That float is now a maximum of 90 feet from the high water mark. So we brought it in about 28 feet from where the existing platform is, from the original filing was. So, our view is we've reduced the non-conformance, we've reduced the length, we've reduced the width, and there's less impedance on the waterways. In addition, it's even closer than 100 feet, I think, limitation or regulation. So we're only 90 feet. The new catwalk connects the existing steps. As I mentioned, these steps are original and part of the Cockles Harbor waterfront for probably 90 years. And it allows for dolphins to the west side of the dock, which would be completely conforming. They're 30 feet off the side setback on the other side. And given the prevailing winds coming down Cockles Harbor there, I think it's appropriate to have dolphins to tie off a boat to be safe. All the other docks, on our stretch of Cockles have dolphins and can tie off boats properly there. So, we tried to be cognizant of the issues. We tried to make significant concessions, to what we initially proposed. I know there's been a lot of concern raised about precedent. I think that was one of the reasons why we believe this is a unique situation. What we've been told is there are no other existing platforms like this on Shelter Island. There are no existing platforms that are out there that are not connected. So we have a platform that's within the current setback. We're not asking to go into the setback. We have something that's already there. We've reduced the non-conformance by bringing it in, by kind of shrinking it, by making it less wide. And, I don't think anyone, if you approve this, I don't think anyone could use this as a precedent. No one else could come to you and say, I want to be within the setbacks on the same basis. We already have something there. No one else, I understand, I'm totally open to be corrected if I'm wrong, but my understanding, is not a similar situation on Shelter. So no one else could ever use this as a precedent, basically. We're not asking to extend it, we're not asking to expand it, we're not asking, lessen compliance. We're trying to do something that we feel, is appropriate and is also consistent, basically. As I mentioned, our family's been here for almost 20 years. We want to be super sensitive to doing what is consistent with the historical landscape of the waterways. And we also want to be sensitive to our neighbors too. We've renovated 2 homes on this stretch of the harbor. Neither one we extended, both we kept the historical context in their existing footprint, basically. As far as I know, there have been no mention of any issues from the neighbors. If there are, we're happy to talk to them and speak with them, but as far as I know, there have been no issues raised by any of the neighbors, basically. In addition, this dock could be well inside the neighboring docks. At 90 feet out, there are multiple docks along our stretch of Shanty Bay that go out significantly further. The immediate dock to the east goes out significantly further. There's a dock 2 down to the west that goes down significantly further. There's another dock about 2 down to the east that goes out significantly further. The Basile dock, the Church dock, all those are significantly larger. I believe many of them are also probably within setbacks too. I don't know exactly, but knowing those lots, I think many of them are within setbacks as well. So, as I said, we've tried to do something. We made significant concessions to the existing proposal. We've shrunk it, we brought it in, we tried to make it less non-conforming. And, I hope you understand and appreciate what we tried to do to get this approved. As you mentioned in the Waterways meeting, there was a long discussion of the Waterways meeting I attended in September. At that point, there were 2 votes in favor, 3 against. I was never notified that anyone changed their vote. There was no public hearing, so I don't know how that works. I don't think any new information was provided, and I was never given the opportunity to actually speak to any new information that was provided, so I'm not sure how a vote got changed. So when I left that meeting, it was turned down 2 to 3, so clearly 2 members of the committee thought it was appropriate, actually. So that's really, we just want to be upfront with you and, speak our mind in terms of what we think we could do. Happy to be open to any other views. But I guess what was raised, you mentioned that people said we could build a dock that would be conforming. That was on a concept that was raised by the Waterways Committee, that we could use an existing small stone platform that's down on the beach and somehow come down the steps, go across this platform to then a standalone dock that would go out that would be, conforming with the setbacks. Number one, that's completely inconsistent with the historical waterfront there. Number 2, I think what they were talking about was using this, it's a very old stone, thing that's on the beach that is underwater most of the time, actually. So I don't think there's any practical use of that, and it would be extremely unsafe to use that, actually. In addition, if you did that, you wouldn't be able to put any tie-off dolphins that wouldn't be within setbacks. So you're back to the same issue of having dolphins within setbacks, actually. And I do think to tie a boat there, it's safer to have dolphins, given the prevailing winds that come across. It's harbor, we're at the end of Cocos Harbor, almost at Real Point. So the winds come across our dock and can be pretty strong at times. So while that was raised, I don't think that's really that practical. And I don't think, we spent a lot of time, with Costello and looking at the options. So, I'm not sure that's really a practical option at this point. So, I'm happy to answer any questions you have as well.
Do you have any?
No, I have no questions. No.
Good. Okay, Jack, do you have anything?
It's just the one point that this is a pre-existing non-conforming structure. And by shortening it to 28 feet, we're bringing it closer to conformity. So that's one of the rules with dealing with pre-existing non-conforming. If you bring it back to closer to conformity, there can be some leniency granted for that. And that's what we're doing by shortening it at length. And I believe you were all there. Where the dock is being located just makes sense. And it doesn't get in anybody's way. It has no effect on anybody. And like Brian said, that this is a situation that's probably not going to happen again. It's just a location that makes sense, and we are bringing it close to conformity as required.
Some of the neighbors' docks go right up to the seawall. Is there a reason that's not
So the
considered?
stairs aren't necessary.
Well, the neighboring dock actually goes right into where the old stairs were. It just happens that it was right at the setback. I did that dock too. So it just happened that the location of their stairs was right at the setback. It just worked out that way. This cutout in the bulkhead just doesn't happen to be at the setback. And the piece of property is completely non-conforming because the house is only about 15 feet off the property line. And, you know, in some of these lots are in question also, because it shows the whole zone as being double A. We all know that's not right. So this is like it reverts back to a different setback anyway. And actually, we're gonna have a bigger setback with the dock than the house has to the property line. So, you know, it's one of these situations where it's all non-conforming. But like I said, with us shortening the dock, we're bringing it closer to conformity. And, you know, a lot of times when we're dealing with these pre-existing non-conformings, we have to do a give back. And basically the give back is shortening the dock by 28 feet, and we're well within the pier line. And like I said, just approaching the dock where it is and where it's laid out, just kind of makes sense. And the fact of the matter is the eastern neighbor's dock is, you know, so far away, and they've got a pretty massive swath of land, compared to the westerly neighbors. The dock doesn't really affect anybody, and we're bringing it closer to conforming.
Jack, when you're saying you have a pre-existing non-conforming dock, but it's not a dock.
Well, it's a non-conforming structure.
Yeah, because the dock is specifically defined in here, and that doesn't fall within the definition of a dock, so it's just, what is it, what would you call it?
It's a platform.
Just okay, so it's not
The
a,
location, I was saying that the location of it's
Of the
not conforming to the 100 feet from mean high water. We're actually bringing this structure back, it's only 90 feet from high water.
okay, I just wanted to make it clear for the record, there's no pre-existing non-conforming dock on this property, it's some structure.
It's a structure.
Okay.
BJ, when we went to look, didn't a couple of the neighbors go right to the seawall, not the stairs?
Yeah, exactly.
So is there a reason you wouldn't consider that?
One to the east and one to.
I mean, the stairs are in pretty bad shape.
You know, there are many that go to the stairs too. And we think it's more logical to come down the stairs than it is to come off, you know, a high seawall, basically. And there are many that actually go to the stairs as well. But the stairs were placed there 90 years ago when the Irish built the house. They, you know, decided to put this platform straight out from those stairs. So we feel like that's really consistent with what's historically been there. You know, as Jack mentioned, we're not impacting any of the neighbors. You know, the dock to the east extends out much further. They actually probably have dolphins within the setbacks, actually. But, you know, so, and this way, we're not gonna have dolphins then, which would be once again within the setbacks. So, you know, and I do think it's important to have dolphins be able to tie up a boat there. So this way, we put the dolphins to the west, you tie up a boat, and, you know, as I said, we're trying to be super sensitive. We're trying to make it better versus what's there. It is an existing platform. It's been there for a long time. We're willing to demolish it. I guess we could renovate it and keep it there, which would, you know, impede the waterway, I guess. We could renovate and keep it there, but we're willing to demolish it, you know, to do what we think is sensitive and, you know, have an appropriate dock for the property, basically. And as I said, we haven't heard any issue from any of our neighbors. No one's talked to us about it. I don't think anything's been registered. This has been going on for a number of years. No one said anything. So, you know, I hope that means that our neighbors are all pretty copacetic with it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a quick question.
You have to come up and identify yourself.
Just have a quick question.
To identify yourself for the record.
Jan Sudo. What was the WMAC vote on this application?
Address your questions to the board, please.
Okay, what was the?
It was 2-4-3 against at the meeting.
Yes.
Anybody else, anybody in the Zoom audience?
Just to reiterate, yeah, I'll just spend more time, but my understanding that a lot of people, the three people who voted against were primarily concerned about precedent. As I said, just to remind you, I don't think this is a precedent issue for you or the Waterways Committee because no one else has this set of facts.
Thank
Thank you. Okay, if there's no more comments on this, we're gonna close this hearing. And again, we will discuss it, what's it, 24th?
24.
Of the work session of the 24th. Open for comments till the 18th. Okay, and we will open the hearing on the 5 Borough Hall dock repair application.
On the application of 5 Borough Hall LLC, 5 Borough Hall Lanes, for permission to perform minor repairs to existing dock by redecking 36 feet of the inshore end with open grate decking and the remaining 86 feet of the offshore end with 5¼ inch by 6 inch Purple Heart decking. Remove and dispose of existing 5 foot by 20 foot and 6 foot by 10 foot floats. Construct a new 20-foot float and a new 6 foot by 10 foot float in kind in place. Replace 3 anchor pilings securing the floating docks.
6-0 approved, September meeting,
Let me see.
pretty straightforward. Yeah,
It's an easy one for you, Jack.
yeah. See if you can keep it under a minute.
It's just a spruce up. They gotta say goodbye, so.
Yeah, yeah, thanks.
Any comments on this one? Okay, we're gonna close that hearing and open the hearing on the use of federal community development block grant funds. Amber?
To express views on local community development needs to be used with the expected federal community development block grant funds of $50,000.
So these grants, the community development block grants, are typically used for things like ADA compliance. They're used for seniors. They're used for housing rehabilitation, public services, public improvement facilities, administration and planning, and typically used to help combat poverty in certain areas. So really what we're opening the floor up to is the public to let us know if they have any recommendations for use of these community block fund grants.
We've, in the past, we've used them a lot for the senior program. We used it for handicapped access at Legion Hall, and we're looking to use it for the handicapped access, the ADA compliance for Justice Hall and the police station.
Right.
Any comments on this one?
Any suggestions or recommendations?
We'll leave that open
No,
for
we'll
a
close
week
it.
for written
yeah.
comments.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna close that one, and now we're gonna reconvene the hearing on Big Ram
I
LLC
thought we were gonna close that hearing.
dock application.
Well,
We're closing it with
Let it
written
adjourn.
comment until the 18th.
I thought he said adjourn, okay.
you make a motion, second, and all in favor.
Yeah, we're closing it. What, say it again?
We're gonna
Motion, second, all in favor.
Stephen Trushin.
What?
to close the hearing.
Yes,
on that.
make a
Block grant.
motion to
Close the
close the
block.
block grant.
Close the hearing.
Didn't make a motion on any of them, I just closed them.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're gonna reconvene the hearing on the Big Ram LLC, Big Ram Island Drive dock application. Waterways Committee?
They unanimously approved the application, subject to eliminating or not building the catwalk connecting the dock to the pre-existing stairs.
It's not accurate.
Can you, come on, we know what the process is. Just let her speak and then you'll have your opportunity to be heard. Thanks.
Okay, well, let me go back to the original. That was a report, so let me go back to my original notes.
My memory was that they approved the dock, but not the catwalk.
Not the catwalk, exactly. Just gonna get my contemporaneous notes, so maybe fill in a little detail.
Walkway? Is that better than catwalk? Whatever it is from the dock to the stairs.
It's a couple.
Boardwalk, catwalk,
Catwalk,
Walkway.
walkway.
walkway, or a catwalk.
All right, here we go. Just, yeah, Thank you, Christina. Find my notes. That's what I just read.
Yeah.
WMAC, oh, unanimous?
Yeah, that's the review.
Yeah, that's what she just
That's
read.
what I just read.
She was
Yeah.
just looking for a note.
I was looking for my notes.
Want to just let the applicant.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. Right.
All right, does the applicant want to speak on this?
Well, could we correct the record?
Well,
Have your opportunity. Just
Correct the record as to what has been said.
the record states that the WMAC approved the dock, they didn't approve a catwalk. If you want to speak, you can have your turn. Jack?
Yes, this is a difficult one. It's a set of stairs with significant erosion on the property. I believe everybody's been there. And that was the idea, was not to cause any more erosion on the property. The WMAC felt uncomfortable with the walkway, but approved the dock. So the applicant, Andrea Carter, is here. If you have any questions, direct to her and her feelings about why this is being done. And it's basically not to create another point of massive erosion. You know, and this particular stairway has been there. And, you know, she owns the property next door also. So it doesn't really impede on any of the neighbors, and it's actually further away from anybody else. So it affects people less by staying as far away from the neighbors as we possibly can. So that was the reasoning behind it all.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the WMAC just felt uncomfortable, wanted that decision to go to you guys, because, you know, like I said, where everything is located, that makes sense.
I found my roll call notes. Member Williamson, Doc, yes. Entire project, no. Alaretto, Doc, yes. Entire project to the town board for consideration. Tom Fields, Doc, yes. Entire project, no. Bill Garrity, Doc, yes. No walkway. And so therefore, reject application as currently submitted.
Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
I was attempting to be brief, and in my brevity, I lost the clarity.
And accuracy.
Well, thank you.
can you start making comments from the crowd, please? You're gonna have an opportunity to speak.
Are there any other questions for me?
No,
thank you.
Anybody else want to speak?
So I'm Pam Demarest, the adjacent neighbor to this parcel. I've given in at least 4 letters to the WMAC, an additional submission to you folks earlier today. I don't know if you had a chance to really take a look at it. Pretty much sums up what I've already been saying. Number one, I think that there is an issue for ownership here, and the easement is an issue. There is a dock on the property. Property has a dock. Why are we even considering a permit for an additional dock or a different dock? There's one there. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know that this town has ever approved a permit for an additional or a different dock prior to a dock.
Wait, I'm very confused. What are you talking about? The dock is on the other property.
The dock is deeded to.
It's deeded, but that's not on the property.
Well, technically, physically, you are correct, but it is
Okay,
deeded.
let's leave it at that.
Okay,
That's
it's
that
deeded
would be
to.
a stipulation, so let's get past
No,
that.
I don't really want to just get past that because even it's deeded to and therefore goes with the land and is in ownership of Big Red LLC.
Noted, so noted.
So I think that that's really important that gets taken care of prior to any action on this application. The WMAC voted this application in its entirety. They denied it 4-0. They did make a suggestion that should the applicant like to just put the dock portion out from the shoreline and not make the connection to the existing staircase, they would be in favor of doing that. I have a little bit of an issue with that, only because of where the marker is for the mean high water and how we would get access then from the stairs behind the existing boulders. And I'd like to suggest that you come and take a site visit at it particularly. There actually does seem to be more erosion in that area on the embankment as well, caused by clearing of vegetation in the past 2 years. Now, I'm going to mention this does go back to the Carroll Dock application as well. This does have an issue with setbacks. Should this town board consider this landing, the upper platform, this angled catwalk to the 30-foot mark off of the property line. All of that is within the setback for this district. So that would require a variance, and unfortunately, the town board doesn't have jurisdiction to grant that variance. So I am requesting that that goes to the ZBA. The town board also has no jurisdiction over the wetlands permits because you've just recently transferred that to the planning board. In my submission to you today, I've shown you 3 other docks that did require wetlands permits. This one is very similar. The dock gets to mean high water, and then there's another structure connecting it to stairs or walkways or paths or whatever we want to call them, and all of that required a wetlands permit. So I must insist that this does as well. I understand that Mr. Karen had made an opinion about the Ram's Head Inn dock recently, that it doesn't need a wetlands permit, but that's already been written in the resolution, so I don't see how that can be ignored at the time when that comes and that application comes to you. What I see is important on this application, other than the fact that you need a wetlands permit and a variance from the ZBA, is that I think that there should be a vegetation plan submitted. The DEC mentioned that the debris was going to be removed and that it needed to be replanted, and I think it's important that we know how well that's going to be done, how fully that's going to be done. Will there be fill needed to be added to the embankment now that it's eroded away so much? I think that's something to look into. I think there should be consideration here for some erosion control now, that these, the removal of the vegetation in the past 2 years and the wooden bulkhead have created this erosion that is now hidden underneath all of the wooden debris and trees and leaves that were dumped in April of this year. And I would like to also take just one issue with the height of this dock. It was mentioned by the chairman of the WMAC that he didn't really see a necessity for this dock to be as high as it is. And if it's not in fact connected to that walkway, catwalk, whatever, I don't see the reason for the height either. I would like to suggest that should there be a modification to this application to just show the stairs as they are, and then where this actual single dock structure would begin and end, I think that would be extremely helpful to get a handle on, is it proper to start this dock at the mean high water mark or perhaps in front of the existing boulder revetments, because those stones are very large. I mean, I think that part of the design, and I can see it from the shoreline, I can understand why Mr. Costello, luckily for him, the 30-foot mark did take a break where the boulders do kind of get to a lower area and you can slip something in between them. But otherwise, those stones are as high as this podium and very difficult to maneuver over. So I'd just like to add that in. And just to mention that, yes, we have had public hearing dates. And this is the 4th public hearing. This is a reconvening of the original public hearing that was scheduled on August 8th, August 29th, and September 19th, at no time the public was able to weigh in on this public hearing. So I just want that as part of the record, that the public was not able to speak at those public hearings.
Well, either was the applicant.
I understand. I don't understand that procedural thing that you open and then adjourn something so quickly, but I just wanted to have that as part of the record. And I also think that it's important that you get the copies of the involved agency's permits now. I know for a fact that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has issued a letter of permission with strict conditions. We should know what they are. I don't know if the Department of State has issued their permit yet for this application. I've been in touch with these agencies. So I think it's very important that you get that. And I think it's also very important that you respect the WMAC and all the hard work that they do and their input on these things and consider the setback issues here on this project. If you're even considering getting that extra little structure up. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Jan Sudo. I'm speaking on behalf of Ram Island Association. I just happen to be the only guy on the board in town. So we oppose the application of Big Ram LLC for this dock because the applicant has asked for a dock which violates requirements of the town code, namely the setbacks in section 53 docking and 133 zoning. So therefore we ask that this town board rejects this application and instructs the applicant to apply for a dock compliant, for the code compliant dock. The issue that, we don't have an issue with the dock itself, which is 100 feet long, so that's code compliant. We have an issue with this elevated ramp or boardwalk, which lies in a setback, in a 30 feet required setback, side setback of the property. Okay? And that's both required in the section 53 docking and section 133 of the town code zoning. Costello Marine submitted the hardship letter on behalf, I guess, of the applicant, saying that they need this variance to minimize disturbance to the wetlands vegetation in the bluff area. So we don't consider this credible, given that the applicant clear-cut the access to the Old Bennett dock without any permits, and all the basically cuttings, cut wood and so forth, is all around the staircase. Moreover, there are two different alternatives when the same could be accomplished. First of all, the owner could walk from the dock along the beach to the existing staircase, as the previous owner, Mr. Bennett, did for 40 years, except to the other side, to the Old Bennett dock, okay? So why couldn't the applicant walk on a beach to her dock, okay? The other solution is to construct a staircase which goes straight up to the bluff. Bluff is only like 15, 20 feet tall, and Costello Marine and other builders build, sometimes staircases which are more than 100 feet long, okay? The Waterway Management Advisory Council voted 4-0 against this application because of the setback requirements. They have the same concerns as we do. Moreover, for some reason, this dock was part of the settlement between Ramstead and the town regarding the Causeway dock, okay? But the only requirement on the town regarding this dock, I'm gonna read this verbatim. Should the application be filed with the town for the new Bennett dock, it too will be reviewed by the town in a good faith and in ordinary course, subject to the town code and applicable laws. And should such application propose a code compliant dock, the town expects that it could be approved without delay. So basically, the town is under no obligation to grant the applicant a dock which is not code compliant, and it's not code compliant, okay? Because Mr. Costello submitted the hardship letter to waive that requirement, okay? Now, I understand that town attorney issued the instruction on the 3rd of October during the work session that the town board can waive the requirements of the section 53 for the setback, okay? But it does not have the town, as far as we know, the town board has no authority to waive zoning requirements, chapter 133. That has to be directed to ZBA. Let's see. So basically, just to sum it up, we think the town board should not waive those requirements, setback requirements, but and reject this application as currently proposed, and instruct the applicants to resubmit the application for the new code compliant dock. And the reasons are, as WMAC stated at the meeting on the October 10th, when they took the vote, they have never granted an exemption from setback requirement to any dock application, and have never voted to approve dock application with access or boardwalk to the dock other than perpendicular to the water line. Okay? And overriding WMAC recommendation, it seemed that several of the docks recently have been rejected by WMAC, one way or the other. So if the town board will be overriding WMAC, I mean, I fail to see why should they bother serving as volunteers, unpaid volunteers of WMAC. And they have together many years of experience, and they usually know what they're talking about, okay? So I think unless there are some extraordinary circumstances, the town board should not be overriding the recommendations of WMAC. And John Needham already quit. And it's probably one of the reasons was this application and some other applications that were recently processed, and that's a big loss for the town. Second, Costello Marine.
I'm sorry, you greatly exceeded the 3 minutes, so can we
Yes,
just
but
ask
you
if
let-
any?
But you let several speakers to speak for 10
No,
minutes.
absolutely, no, you spoke more than 3 minutes like other speakers.
I
So
understand.
I'm just suggesting
Yeah.
that we see if anybody else would like to speak. And
Yeah,
if,
let me just finish,
Wait, if anybody else wants to speak, you can come back.
yes,
I
that's,
just have 1 minute.
No, this is the procedure we've been following.
Yes,
If
but
anybody
it's-
else wants to speak, then you can come back when they're done. If anybody else wants to
But
speak.
you let the pay the expert of Costello to run for 30 minutes.
because he's an applicant, he's an agent of the
Well,
applicant.
then
So, Jan, you're disrupting the meeting.
If no one else wants to speak, you can stay. Does anybody else want to speak? If you don't want to speak now, you're not going to speak later.
I'm just gonna finish really quickly. The hardship letter provided by Costello is not credible because there's other alternatives to it, at least two that I can think of. And therefore, it's a preference and not the necessity. Thirdly, you just saw yourself that there was a doc applicant that came with a lawyer, stenographer, because there was a precedent created, okay? The town made a mistake of granting a doc where it shouldn't be granted. Now, anybody coming in, Mr. Costello is gonna bring the lawyer, the expert, the stenographer, and the town is gonna be
The town didn't make a
forced.
mistake. Town followed the law.
Yes, it followed the law, but a mistake was made that created a precedence. Once the precedent is created, then the town is forced to basically cave into any applicant that comes with a lawyer.
That's not
Okay?
true.
Okay, but
I have,
that's the risk. Well, how about 11 Serpentine Drive? How did that go for you?
wait,
What
we're
are you
not
talking
talking
about?
about that. We're going, I need to
Are you
question,
done?
I need to question
Yeah,
Mr.
no,
Costello.
Jack, come up, he's done.
I would
I'm
just,
just finishing, okay?
You
So
said you were
I'm saying
finishing for the
that
last 3
it's very
minutes.
dangerous, creating precedent, okay? And as WMAC
Really?
said,
What is wrong
there
with you?
has never
You're
been.
very bitter, you're a bitter man.
There have never been a dog granted
Be done.
which violated setback applications. And that will concern all the future dog applications as well as all the building applications, okay? Because somebody will wanna put a building 10 feet from the border, and this violates the provisions of chapter 138.
you said, heard that.
Yeah.
Jack, can I ask you a few questions, if I may? Jack Costello back again. Height, what is this out of the ordinary height, this dock?
3 feet above high tide.
3 feet, and that's kind of what you do? So height was brought up because it visually is, I'm not really sure what the objection was when I heard it. I was just asking if you have a sense.
If it makes you happy to be 2.5 feet.
Yeah.
That's fine too.
Yeah,
I will adjust the plans,
okay.
the height is not really that big of a deal.
Right, and I mean, they brought it up and then sort of put it to the side because it was kind of late. The second question I have for you, if the applicant was to do a staircase straight up the bluff, what would be the environmental harm there? Can you speak to that?
It's another point of erosion. The point being that where the stairs are now is where the worst of the erosion is. So that, it shows right there on the property what happened.
Right.
And that's the ultimate fear.
Right. So it would not make sense to get rid of the staircase where the erosion is the worst?
But then we're gonna,
And plant that?
It's the worst because the stairs is there.
Oh.
You put it in another place, it's going to get just as bad there.
It's not because there were things thrown over that hurt the vegetation? Yeah, you don't know, okay.
There are also no boulders in that area, and there are boulders in front of the bluff where you would be putting the stairs.
Right, I'm not even sure how you'd,
The reason why there's still more land there is because there's so many boulders in that area.
yeah.
There's no boulders in the area that's eroding, so that's where the water goes.
Okay, thanks. A little clearer. I might have to go out again.
Anybody else? Pam?
I really do like to address this erosion situation because, being owners of the property for 87 years next door, that bluff was always fully vegetated. Fully vegetated. I sent you a photograph that shows how vegetated it was in 85. And then in 2017, the bulkhead was there was vegetation all over there. For years, if I ever walked along that shoreline to get to the causeway, I was ducking underneath bushes. It was not until this new ownership that this erosion has become an issue. It was never like this in my
I think that
lifetime.
erosion happened in 2 years?
It did, because all of the bushes that were planted along that embankment got ripped out, roots and all. It would have been one thing if they were cut and trimmed, as we do allow in wetlands areas, to help views and all of that, but they were ripped from the roots. And because of that, it is now completely sanding down. This has nothing to do with the existing stairs. The stairs were fine until this activity began.
How do you know that, Pam?
How do I know that? Because I've
That it was
lived
ripped,
there.
no, that it was ripped out by the roots.
I have the evidence that.
How?
Because I have evidence of the cut, wood pieces on the
just said it was
shoreline.
ripped, not cut.
Well, you can tell that there are no roots left. If you had cut it, the roots would still be there. You'd see
How are
a
you,
stump.
how did you observe that?
What do you mean, how did I observe that? Looking
Well,
at
you're
the
making-
bluff, you
you're
can
making-
certainly say that there were plants here.
That were
and
ripped
yes,
out by the roots.
They were torn out from the roots.
How do you know that?
Because you can see how the underpinning is coming now from everything else. Some of the plants have been removed in its their entirety. If you want more photographic evidence, I will be happy to show it to
You
you.
have photographic evidence of them being removed by the roots.
I don't have it actually see someone pulling it out by the roots, but certainly this is, and my horticultural experience of 30 years tells me that that's how it
But
was.
did you go up and down the bluff and check?
Excuse me?
No, Matt, did you go up and down the bluff and check
What do you mean?
where this vegetation was allegedly ripped out?
Vegetation was taken out between the staircase of the Bennett property, now the Graham property, and the Ram's Head.
Yeah.
When you look at the vegetation from where the staircase is going down south toward my property, that's how the other embankment used to be planted. That's how thick the vegetation was there, okay? Now, can I find you the perfect photograph? Perhaps not, but you must believe me. I mean, why would I lie? So this excuse that the stairs have caused the erosion is just nonsense. And the other thing that I just wanted to make sure that you are aware of is that the property line from the northern part of the existing staircase is 5 feet 6 inches from the property line. So we are talking about a setback easement variance of 25 feet that would be required for this construction. Because it's not marked on the plans, and it was very hard to tell from the surveys submitted. But now that the stake is there, a tape measure does the trick. Thanks.
Thank you.
Can I speak? Hi, Andrea Carter, 2 South Grand Island Drive. There's been some statements made about foliage being ripped out. I have not touched or injured any of the foliage on either side of the stairwell. Many of you folks were at the property several years ago before all that lawn debris was placed on both sides of the stairwell. I would like to remove that lawn debris that I did not place there, nor did I cause to have placed there. And the DEC has told me to leave it there until they give me permission to remove it. I believe underneath it should still be the plantings that were always there, because I have not cut them down, nor have I caused them to be cut down or removed in any way, shape, or form. I think that when you've been there, you can see that it is lawn debris and it's laying on top of the area on either side of the stairwell. However, back to the original conversation about erosion, several years ago when we started this process, we could clearly see the erosion, and so that's where it is. But thank you for letting me clear the record.
Anybody else? John?
Yeah, I just want to address the concern about the height of the dock, because this proposed dock is 5.5 feet above mean low water. Typically, docks are built 3 to 3.5 feet above mean low water, and then they always stay dry, except a couple times a year they're flooded. So that my dock is like that. I have
That does mean high water that you measure from.
no low water. On the drawings, if you look, it's always elevation, it's always reference to the low water, correct? And so it's 3.5 feet, because the typical high tide to low tide difference is 2 feet, 2.5 feet. So then, except a couple times a year, when it's extraordinarily high tide, then the dock gets flooded, okay? But 3.5 feet of mean low water, it's enough for the dock to stay dry, except maybe a couple times a year, okay? And that's normal usage, okay? this dog proposed is 5.5 feet above low water. So that means it will always stay dry even in hurricane, okay?
He just said
And,
he'd go to 2.5 feet if he had to.
I'm sorry?
Jack said he would go to 2.5 feet if he had to. She said BJ asked about 3 feet, not 5 feet. Is 5 feet, Jack?
2.5 feet, that sounds pretty low because we'll get flooded a lot. Let's say 3 to 3.5. 5 feet, 5.5 feet, that's super high. That's like eyesore to the neighborhood, obstruct the views and so forth. And it's the same problem with the permitted dock for Ramsar Inn, that's also 5.5 feet. There were so many other problems with this application, nobody was paying attention. But both docks are too high and much higher than all adjacent docks, which shouldn't be, because the WMAC practice typically was to allow docks which are consistent with the elevation of all other docks in the neighborhood.
Thank you.
You wanna respond? Yeah. I mean, to me, the obvious is the climate changes, we're raising bulkheads. Half the docks are underwater.
Generally speaking now, what we're doing is above mean high water, 2 to 3 feet above mean high water.
Yeah.
Is where the docks are. We don't want the docks to go underwater on an average low tide. I understand from Hurricane Sandy, the docks going underwater. But, you know, we don't want the docks to be egregious or high or anything. We want them to be maintained and not have a problem.
So this is the new normal, is what you're saying.
Yes. And if we need the plans to reflect that, that's not a big deal.
Thank you, Jack. Anybody else?
No, I think we're.
Anybody else wanna speak? Anybody in the Zoom audience? Okay, we're gonna close this hearing. We'll keep it open for 1 week for written comments, and we will discuss it on October 24th at a very lengthy work session.
Yeah, that's a good pizza. Great. We have one resolution.
Me too.
Okay,
Are you
I'll
gonna?
make a motion that we go back into our town board meeting.
Meg, I think that's you.
Do a resolution regarding the ethics code.
Have a good night, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack.
Jack.
Thank you. Just one?
And no, it's the other one too, the,
Borough Hall.
Borough Hall, yeah.
I just do ethics one. All right. Whereas a public hearing was duly held on the 11th day of October 2023 for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to a proposed local law entitled a local law amending Chapter 8 entitled Ethics Code of, to broaden the scope of circumstances when private employment may conflict with official duties. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board does hereby adopt local law number 12-2023 entitled Ethics Code of, to wit.
You guys, please stop talking. If you're gonna talk, go outside, please. Thank you.
So the code,
Are you disrupting the meeting, Kim?
Apologizing.
Okay, good, because do you act like this in church or synagogue or school? Stop talking, have a little respect.
All right, everybody, let's knock it off. Please, we're almost done.
all right, so this resolution, that's what I'm doing. This resolution is available at the town clerk's office. The only change is in section 8-9. I'll read it to you. Private employment in conflict with official duties. A, no officer or employee during their tenure as an officer or employee may engage in any private employment that may be in substantial conflict with the proper discharge of their duties. And then the addition is, including but not limited to, when, and then it gives the following 3 conditions. It can be reasonably expected to require more than sporadic recusal or abstention. It can be expected to require disclosure, and it requires a representation of a person or organization. So this full code is available at the clerk's office. So summary of the proposed law is that the purpose of the local law is to ensure that all private employment, not just the circumstances currently enumerated in the code, does not substantially conflict with carrying out of official duties of town employees and officers.
Just read the effective date.
The effective date of this local law shall take place upon filing with the Secretary of State pursuant to municipal home rule law. So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
You want to do the next one?
Yeah, sure. Whereas Five Borough Hall LLC, 5 Borough Hall Lane, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to perform minor repairs to existing dock by redecking 36 feet of the inshore end with open grate decking, remaining 86 feet of the offshore end with 5/4 by 6-inch Purple Heart decking, remove, dispose of existing 5-foot by 20-foot and 6 by 10-foot floats, construct new 5 by 20 float and a new 6 by 10 float in kind, in place, replace 3 anchor pilings securing the floating docks, and I don't think I have the rest of it.
Whereas the public hearing was duly held on October 11th. You have it.
Thank you, yeah, I do. No. All right. Okay, yes. Was duly held on October 11, 2023, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of, opposition to. Now therefore it be resolved that pursuant to New York NYCRR 617.5 C2, this application is deemed a type 2 action. Reasons supporting this determination: the proposed constructions cause an obstruction into navigable channels or interference with navigation. 2, will not adversely affect the public's right to use town waters or land under waters. 3, will not adversely affect shell fishing grounds or other aquatic wildlife which may exist in the immediate area. 4, will not adversely affect the quality of the tidal waters, shorelines, or beaches. 5, will not adversely affect the rights of adjacent residents. Be it further resolved that the town clerk is hereby authorized to issue a permit for the aforementioned construction as per specifications filed after said applicant pursuant to section 53(9) of the code of the town of Shelter Island. Has filed with the town clerk a certificate that the owner has at least $300,000 liability insurance on the location and operations covered by said permit, a copy of the contractor's current home improvement contractor's license, and a certificate from the contractor performing the operations covered by said permit that said contractor has an owner's contractor's policy issued in favor of the town of Shelter Island for the liability limits of at least $500,000 covering operations of the contractor pursuant to said permit. And be it further resolved that said operations shall be completed within 1 year of the date of the issuance of this permit. Said permit is subject to the recommended limitations and any requirements that may be necessary under New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, Army Corps of Engineers, and any other agencies having jurisdictions so moved. Aye.
Okay, at this time I'll open the meeting to the public. Any comments from the public? Questions? Zoom? Anybody on Zoom? Okay, if there's nobody wants to say anything,